Right, let's speak about Brazil. First of all, kudos to all the fans that were there who toughed it out over the weekend with the crappy conditions. Round of applause to you lot, but mind you, judging by this TikTok I saw, seems like the vibes were pretty damn good. Also, kudos to all the track personnel and everyone that had to go in mad early on Sunday. Like, what was it, 4 a.m? People were arriving at the circuit? That is absolutely insane. Kudos to all of them for making it through. End of a triple header, everybody's tired anyway, that wouldn't have helped, but everybody got through it. Now let's speak about the madness and the chaos of the race weekend, because first of all, the stewarding and race direction was questionable at best. First of all, there was the sprint race safety, virtual safety car in the sprint race. It took a solid, minute to 2 minutes for it to even come out, which is not out of the ordinary for the race director to be very, very slow on calling a safety car or a virtual safety car or a red flag. That is not out of the ordinary. It should not be out of the ordinary though, that's the thing. Now, yeah, the whole part was still kind of moving, but I'm not leaning into all the conspiracy of everything. But all I'll say is that with everything from this weekend, the stewards are not helping them. The stewards, race direction, FIA, F1, not helping themselves with those rigged and British bias claims that are flying around everywhere. The quali red flags as well. There was one in particular that took a while to come out. That was the Stroll red flag in Q2, the end of Q2. So it took about 40 seconds for it to come out, which that should not have happened. It should not have taken 40 seconds for them to decide if it was needed to be a red flag or not. A car had crashed. That is a red flag, you know? In regards to Max being knocked out, there's there's nothing weird there because yellow flag first flew at 1 minute 30 seconds left on the clock. Max Verstappen was already in P10 at that point, and Charles Leclerc, crucially, was in P13, just about to finish a flying lap. 2 seconds later, 1 minute 35 left on the clock, Charles crosses the line to set a lap time and go from P13 to P3, knocking Max down into the drop zone. So Max would have been out either way, even if the length of time it took the red flag, them to go from yellow to red was about the same as the other red flag, which was about 10 to 20 seconds or so, I think it was, for the other kind of red flags that were in qualifying. Max would have been out anyway, there's nothing weird there. So, and I mean, it is normally yellow, then red, that we see when it's a red flag in qualifying. It goes yellow first, then it goes red. We don't really see instantaneous red flag in qualifyings, unless it's, an absolutely massive shunt, but you get what I mean. Moving on. Like I said, with the race directions between the FIA and F1, they've not been helping themselves with those rigged and British bias claims that have been flying around. It didn't help, the stewards didn't add to that much. Will help with that any, with the penalties, which, good Lord. So you're meaning to tell me accidentally saying fuck in a press conference is worse than a technical infringement or a starting infringement? Because both Mercedes drivers got a €5,000 fine for the technical infringement with the tires, the tire pressure thing. Norris for the start infringement where he started another formation lap and it was an aborted start and he shouldn't have. €5,000 fine and a reprimand. How did he get away so freaking lightly? They aborted the start, it was for safety. Because there was a car off because Stroll had gone off at turn 4, and then he rather stupidly, I would love to know what was going through his brain at this point in time, he stupidly decided the best route to get back on the track, instead of going across the very available runoff that was there to be used, he decided that the gravel was the best option. And this video from someone on TikTok who was clearly in the crowd just makes me question it more. But he was off. Marshals were coming on track to try to recover the car, get it off. Safety reasons is why it was aborted. Norris went for another formation lap. I can kind of understand the other 4 that were under investigation for that being letting off with no further action, I think it was, because Norris was the one that started it, not them. They just followed, the wording of the document made no sense to me. Right, let me read you through what the decision document said under reason. So, Norris, for the thing, he got a driving reprimand and he got fined €5,000. This is what was said under reason. The stewards heard from the team representative and reviewed video evidence. The FIA Formula 1 race director initiated the aborted start procedure, indicating that the drivers should not leave the grid. This message was necessary as there was a car off and in turn 4. That was Stroll, that needed to be recovered. Although the signal was appropriately given, the light panel illuminated as prescribed, the teams notified by the messaging system, the driver left the grid and proceeded on a lap that he assumed to be an extra formation lap. As the driver was on the front row of the grid, this triggered the following drivers to take similar action. The first ones to kind of protest to it was Ocon and then Leclerc, who had to restart his engine because he like switched it off, which is what you were supposed to do. At some point, the race director, realizing that for practical reasons all cars would now need to do an extra formation lap, gave an instruction to the teams for all cars to proceed and return to the grid to follow the correct abort and start procedure. Some cars were in like wrong order anyway. And a small side note, some of the cars were just like parked in wrong places. This is what Adam Cooper said on Twitter. Perez moved up 2 places to take Stroll's empty slot. This was like on the first lineup of the grid. Hamilton then parked right behind the Red Bull and realized immediately something was wrong. Franco Colapinto took the wrong grid slot. So there was a few wrong placements anyway, but I continue with the document. In the opinion of the stewards, the driver, Norris, precipitated the action of the drivers on the grid directly behind them. It's that line in particular that makes absolutely zero sense to me. Because what do they mean precipitated the action of the drivers on the grid directly behind him? Can someone please make that sentence make sense to me? Because it doesn't. I do not understand that at all. I don't understand how he got away so lightly. I don't know. Maybe Max was onto something with his statements about passports and all that. Oh yeah, on Max and British passport and that. Did you see him in the press conference after the race? I was like, oh, where's the British media? Did they have to catch a flight home? Did they not know where the press conference was? I'll link a video down. I'll link the video to it down in the description below. It's freaking hilarious. Everyone was pissing themselves laughing. But yes, apparently in F1 these days, doing a starting procedure wrong or doing everything in technical infringement, which normally a technical infringement is a straight disqualification. Apparently they're not as bad as accidentally saying fucking a press conference. Who knew? Honestly, FIA stewards, consistently inconsistent. Like, it's not new for them to be giving out questionable decisions. They do it all the time, and really that needs to be sorted because it's getting a bit ridiculous now, the amount of questionable decisions they make. It's like this race weekend, entertainment-wise, honestly, race weekend of the season, Brazil always delivers, it did again. But the race direction and the stewarding was questionable at best. In the race as well, there was a red flag and all that as well with Franco going off. Perhaps they should have red flagged it for the conditions, because I'm pretty sure drivers were calling for it to be red flagged because you could barely see. You know, there was so much water on the track. They threw the safety car out, and that was the smart thing to do, but really should have been red flagged. Probably drivers were calling for it to be red flagged. No, Franco, it took so much crashing for them to actually red flag it, but whatever. On the red flag, did anybody see Norris's comments after the race? What was it he said? Oh, it shouldn't have been red flagged. What does he mean? What? I'm sorry? And then he'd said, oh, it's not talent, it's luck, you know? I don't know if he was talking about himself or others, but if he was like, yeah, after a race where things haven't gone right, adrenaline runs high, being annoyed at your result is fine. Being not happy with, you know, where you finish, that's fine, that's expected, you know? But I'm just saying Lando does sometimes come across as a bit of a sore loser. And I mean, it's not even really the first time we've seen Lando kind of come across as a bit of a sore loser. Monza comes to mind, where in the cool down room and on the podium, he was kind of looking a little bit like a cat had crapped in his coffee. Max Verstappen, honestly, that was talent. That was Leclerc was said something about how, you know, Max made the difference. I'm pretty sure it's what Leclerc was saying, and I fully agree with that. And that is, I think everybody can agree with that. Max, it was the driver that made the difference. They always say that about the rain. You know, the rain, it equals out the cars, it puts the cars on an equal playing field, and it's the conditions where the driver can make the difference. And we know how good Max Verstappen is in the wet. We've seen it at Brazil. He had an incredible drive there in 2016. He's done it again this weekend, Brazil, here, with honestly the best win of his entire F1 career. Did he get lucky with the timing, with how the safety car red flag worked out? Yeah, he did. But luck is part of racing. You know, we all know that. Luck is part of F1. And at the end of the day, Red Bull made the right decision to keep him out. to stay out longer. Norris and Russell and Leclerc and everybody else who boxed, it was arguably the wrong choice to box. Because, you know, and it's the thing, but when the conditions start getting worse, then, and it's kind of getting time of thinking, oh, should we go onto the wet side? But none of them from Earth really went onto the wet, except for Tsunoda. I'll have a mention of Toro Rosso later on. But like when it's getting to that thing where you're thinking, oh, the conditions are getting worse, should it be wet? It's probably going to get red flagged anyway. The race is probably going to be neutralized. And Max just made the right choice, and so did both Alpines. Come back to them in a second. But no, Max Verstappen, he's shoe why. He is a 3-time world champion and about to be a 4-time world champion. The gap is 62 points. Norris needs to outscore Max by 3 points or more in Vegas to stay in contention for the championship, to keep it going to Qatar. Max very much just put one hand on the championship trophy with a very, very fine drive, and very much completely killed off any chance of anybody fighting him for the title. Although, mind you, I was always hesitant to call it a championship fight anyway. Max also really silenced any critics. Mainly the British media, who, as I said, he has been in a bit of a battle with, it seems. Or, well, there's been comments made mainly from him. But regardless, he really silenced the critics and said, hey, he's still there. He's still just as good. And as I said, he is a 3-time world champion for a reason. But Alpine, out of nowhere, round of applause, Alpine. Well done to them. Their car was actually pretty damn decent in the wet. They got the timing right with everything, like Max. You know, they cycled to the front with not boxing and then getting a free change of tires under the red flag. It looked out for them, and then they were able to stay up at the front. And in what was first and third, then it was second and third as Max buggered off after that safety car, that last safety car. They've come out of nowhere in the battle for 6th. They really just went boom. In one weekend, they're right up there in the battle for 6th. They're in 6th place now in the Constructors' Championship, and at the right time as well. They've gotten up there into 6th place at the correct point in time. There's 3 rounds to go, and we're talking millions of dollars here in difference from, what, 9th is where they were before to now in 6th. That's millions of dollars. Make a huge difference. And completely, no one could have predicted that. Even after qualifying, nobody could have predicted both Alpines on the podium. Insane. And a mention on Toro Rosso. I said I'd mention them, or whatever you want to call them. Well done in qualifying. 3rd and 5th. I did not see that coming. For a moment, I thought Yuki might get ahead of Norris and actually get to P1. But no, he didn't. It was P3. Well done to them. The audition for Checo seat at Red Bull continues because he was frickin' anonymous. Award on Ferrari. They are, what, 40-odd points behind McLaren in the Constructors' Championship? They're like 40-odd points behind them. 3 races ago. I'm still sticking to McLaren are going to win the Constructors. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If McLaren do not win the Constructors, I have questions, alright? Because McLaren have bottled a lot this year. And exactly how many times in the race in the Brazilian Grand Prix did Norris bottle, honestly? Like, seriously, on how many times did McLaren have bottled this year? I'm gonna look into it, and I'll get back to you with a video sometime between the conclusion of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and Christmas. That sound good? But no, Ferrari. First of all, Leclerc continues 2 trends. First of all, the trend of every time he scores points this year in a Grand Prix, it's in the top 5. And second trend, every single P5 finish he's had in a Grand Prix this year has been behind George Russell in P4. Spain, he finished 5th, Russell 4th. Singapore, he finished 5th, Russell 4th. And now Brazil, he finished 5th, Russell 4th. And then signs like Checo was bloody anonymous. Like Ferrari, they've had a really good triple header here. In Austin, they had a double podium. They had a 1-2 even. That was a very good weekend to be a Ferrari fan. And that start, I'm still not over that start from Leclerc in Austin. Max was too focused on Lando, then Leclerc just sweeps through. Love it. I don't think they're going to make it easy for McLaren, but I do still expect McLaren to win the Constructors. Not to mention Red Bull as well, who have come roaring back up towards Ferrari, and the Constructors feel like if they can keep it up, what they kind of saw with Max in Brazil, perhaps they can be in factor for second, but we'll see what happens. I still think it'll be McLaren winning it, though. If they don't, I have questions. And also, I really feel for Williams. They spent all morning after qualifying, they were repairing Franco's car. Then they had 2 cars crash in the morning. Then Franco crashed in the race again. Aston Martin as well. They spent all that time repairing Stroll's car, only for him to bin it. As I already spoke about Stroll binning it. At least Alonso finished the race, although he did seem to be in quite a bit of pain afterwards. At least he saw the checkered flag, but really feel for those teams. But kudos to them for actually getting the cars in the race, except for Albon. And kudos to Ferrari for getting Sainz in as well. Let's have a run through the championship standings. So in the Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen leads the way on 393 points. He has a 62-point lead over Lando Norris now. The championship quote-unquote fight very much over. Well, Norris's chances of maybe overhauling it are done. He's on 331 points to Charles Leclerc rounding out the top 3 on 307 points. Oscar Piastri is in 4th place on 262 points, with Carlos Sainz rounding out the top 5 on 244 points. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton in 6th and 7th are separated by only 2 points. Of the really interesting battle there going on between the 2 Mercedes cars, with Russell on 192 and Hamilton on 190, while Sergio Perez is on 151 points. Fernando Alonso is in 9th place on 62 points, to Nico Hülkenberg in 10th on 31 points, and then Yuki Tsunoda is on 28 points in 11th, ahead of his former teammate Pierre Gasly on 26 points now in 12th place. He's 2 ahead of Lance Stroll, who's on 24 points in 13th place, with Esteban Ocon 1 point behind that in 14th place on 23 points. Kevin Magnussen has missed 2 races this season, but he's on 14 points in 15th. Alex Albon is on 12 points in 16th place, the same amount of points as Daniel Ricciardo, who got binned off after Singapore, also on 12 points. Ollie Behrman has now done 3 races this year, making him ineligible to do a rookie practice session in Abu Dhabi if Ferrari were going to stick him in, because I mean they still have to do one, because unfortunately for them Saudi Arabia did not count. He's on 7 points in 18th place, with Franco Colapinto on 5 points in 19th. Liam Lawson is in 20th on 4 points. He's the last of the point scorers, because Logan Sargent is in 22nd place on 0 points. He got binned off earlier in the season. Meanwhile, Zhou Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas are 21st and 23rd respectively in a 20-car championship. In terms of the drivers' standings on how I think they'll finish like 1st to 5th, cannot help but feel like it's going to be the exact same order they're in right now. As for the Constructors' Championship, McLaren are leading the way on 593 points to Ferrari on 557. That is a 36 point lead for McLaren, 593 to 557, and then Red Bull are 13 points ahead of Ferrari on 544 points. Mercedes are in 4th place, all on their lonesome on 382 points. They've had a no man's land season, and Aston Martin are a ways behind them on 86 points. Alpine have now jumped up to 6th place on 49 points, with Haas now in 7th on 46 points. Red Bull, they're a sister team, whatever you want to call them, Minardi, Toro Rosso, AlphaTauri, the second Red Bull team that I don't know what to call and I never know what to call. They're on 44 points, with Williams on 17 points, and Sauber are still on nothing. And in terms of the order for this one, well, the top 3, I think it's going to be in the order they're in now. The battle for 6th, I quite frankly have absolutely no idea. It could go either way. I'm going to place my bets on Haas for 6th though, Alpine 7th, and then RB in 8th. But no, Brazil. Honestly, cracking race. Brazil always delivers. The stewarding and the race direction, as I said, questionable at best. But we saw a great race. Max finally returned to the top step of the podium. But he went from like 17th to 7th or 6th in like 10 laps or something like that. And then he managed to get to the front. And then when he got to P1, he just buggered off up front like we saw him do so many times last year and at the beginning of this year. That was a champion's drive from a soon-to-be 4-time world champion, honestly. Anyway, what did you think of the Brazilian Grand Prix, or Sao Paulo Grand Prix? Let me get your thoughts down in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.